don't know if it totally came out that way. Because I had to tell a story from my perspective. So in there, it's kind of like basically two main characters instead of one leading.
Yeah.
You,
Yeah, I think you understand it pretty clear, and you kind of understand where you are with one of the challenges of the script. I agree with you. I think that when I started reading it, it did have the feel of a script that was going to be about Lindsay. But you said it very nicely just now. It's about him in its best form, but it's about him and the impact that he's had on the lives of these individuals. So you have to bring those individuals into the story, and then we have to see him interacting on them, how he changes their life, how it makes him better, how it makes them better. And then there goes your story. And then if that remains the focus of the story, the only thing that you have to be careful of is the emphasis. How much weight is given to Lindsay versus how much weight is given to those young men who you have to have in the script because he impacts their lives. But at the end of the script, if I feel like, wait a minute, I don't think this is really a script about Lindsay so much as it's a script that focuses on the young man. And in the process, it's particular, especially Spank, and in the process, we have to have Lindsay just to show that Lindsay has some impact on the lives of the person who the script really seems to be about. Now, I know all of that is twisted around because I think you did start off writing a script really about Lindsay, and then about page 12 or 13, after Lindsay has gone through the college Lindsay, we are introduced to Spank. And I thought, okay, interesting. Here comes another character. And again, I hadn't read it any further at that point, so I didn't know to what extent that character was going to have a dominant or a minor role in the script. But as I kept reading, page after page, scene after scene, I thought, let me make a note now. I think this character is starting to steal the focus of the script. And that's why I wanted to ask you first, because you just described it perfectly. Written from your perspective, Spank is the strongest character for me in the script. And the script, strangely enough, seems to be about him. And then there is this minor character, as I'm reading it, named Lindsay, who has an impact on our lead character's life. So that's the reason why he's there. But then I go back and I think, but the script starts off with this character named Lindsay. So I said, okay, we got a little bit of both characters need to be in the script. But I think the writer, in this case, you have to decide who am I really writing the script about? And then I have to make sure in terms of emphasis, that character is who most of the focus of the story is about. The other characters only come into the story to expand on my main character, to let the audience know more about my main character, to dimensionalize my main character, to show the struggles that my main character is going through, to show the successes that my main character is having. Now, those other characters can have their successes, their struggles, and all of that. But if you stick to a traditional approach in the script writing, we need to always know who we're rooting for. We need to always know. Now, we can root for more than one character, obviously. But we really need to know, who is this story about? Now, can a story be about two characters? Yeah, it can. But then you have truly what's called a buddy movie. I don't know that this is really a buddy movie because Lindsay touched the lives of too many people. I know you can't write about all those people, so it's beautiful how you kind of use Spank as kind of a prototype of those African-American males who were challenged, who came to Lindsay and found some direction in their lives, and that's cool. But he wasn't the only one. So it wasn't like Lindsay and Spank as a buddy movie.
right.
So then you gotta have to say, you know what, I gotta keep Spank in check and just make sure that. And then that was another thing too. I noticed that I know Lindsay, touched hundreds, if not thousands, by extension. And so this story focused on Spank, but I thought, as a note, if we want to get away from Spank a little bit and not giving too much emphasis here, you could bring in 2 or 3 other characters. And they're not going to play major roles, but they're not going to be so minor that they appear and do one line in the script. Maybe there's 3 other minor characters on the forensic team who have slightly different challenges, but who Lindsay is working with as well. That way, again, the focus shifts to Lindsay and his work with these young people, his impact on their life. And then it doesn't shift away so much on Spank, because now you have 2 or 3 other characters, maybe a female. I don't
exactly.
feel a lot.
That's a good point. I was thinking that too.
Yeah. Then think about some of the things that he's done that, we know he's done so many things, and you can take some of those stories and kind of sprinkle it with this character, that character. And you don't have to be heavy-handed with it, but it takes the emphasis off of Spank. Now, Spank's story does remain as one of the subplots, and maybe out of all of the students, he's kind of more emphasized than the rest of them. But by introducing those other ones, it doesn't seem like a movie about Spank that Lindsay happens to be in. You follow me?
Exactly.
Yeah. So then that way, let me get to some of these other things.
Can I make a comment real quick?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, you're spot on with all of the feedback. I really appreciate it, because I was thinking about a lot of those things that I already knew I was going to have to do some rewriting at some point. And I was kind of thinking also, and I'm definitely going to consider what you said about, adding a female character in there. And that was one of my original intentions, to add at least one female and another character in there somewhere. I was inspired by this documentary I saw, and they had before the actual. It was a football documentary. It's about a big game in the Texas high school, and high school football, and they played at the Texas Stadium and where the Dallas Cowboys play. But before the actual game, they had the pre-story where it was the previous season, and then one team lost or something like that. So then they were coming back for the next season, and then that's where the story actually started. So I was thinking about adding the a little bit more of the pre-story, maybe 15 pages of like the previous season. Maybe Lindsay's team took second place before Spank actually comes in and they actually win everything, where they take like second place to the college prep schools. And maybe one of the female characters is on that team. She graduates, maybe becomes a coach or something, and then helps Spank and kind of mentors and helps Lindsay or something like that, or some of the characters, and that way they could be intertwined with the pre-story and the backstory and then the actual movie. So that's kind of like what I was thinking. So I don't know what your thoughts on that would be.
So in that theory, would you start with that?
So I would keep the it would be in the beginning. I would keep the beginning as it is, but it like before we actually meet Spank, there would be the previous year forensics tournaments, maybe like a couple tournaments, and Lindsay would get introduced to those kids, and then we see like some of their success, but then they don't actually win everything. They come close. Then Lindsay comes back the next year, and then here comes Spank.
Well, I think that's interesting. I think the only problem with front loading a script too much is, that was one of the comments that I had here, is that first act, which is really it can't be any more than 17 to 25 pages. That first act really just serves to set up the script. It really introduces us to the characters. It kind of lets us know who the main protagonist is, in this case, Lindsay. It introduced some of the other characters, not necessarily all. We can meet some characters in the second act, but in that first act, we kind of got to know where we are, what the setting is. In this case, we're in Oakland, or if there is a flashback, we kind of need to get the lay of the land in that first act. But it can't, and that's why the first act has to do its job, move quickly, and then get us to what the dilemma is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I didn't notice after I was reading in the story. At some point, I was introduced to characters, and then I thought, I'm kind of on page 30 now. I don't know where I'm going here. So with a standard story, let's say, well, let me go 5150, but you'll appreciate it. So,
Yeah.
so the Three Little Pigs. All of those stories are based on a standard format that works with script. I introduce you initially to the Three Little Pigs. I introduce you to why they're different. And in doing that, I'm going to set up what kind of house they're going to build. One builds the house of straw because of his personality. The other builds the house of sticks or whatever because of his personality. And then the other one, who's a lot more pragmatic and, and sensible, he builds the house of bricks. So all of that is in my setup. You know that they're out in the forest. You know that everything is fine. Okay. If I'm telling you that story, you got to be thinking, well, wait a minute, something's got to happen, right? Because you can't just keep telling me about these three pigs. And then I say, good question. All of a sudden, the wolf comes. And then you say, now that's what I'm talking about. The ante has to be up. Something has to happen. And when that something happens, I know that for a while now, I'm going to be talking about the dilemma that these three pigs find themselves in, because the wolf has arrived. And when that wolf arrives, he doesn't go away right away. That's the whole second act. The challenge of what is our hero going to do to deal with the challenge that he's going through? What will the struggles be? What will some of the successes be? Will he try it over again? Will somebody die? All of that stuff is the stuff that antes up the tension. It raises the stakes in the story, and it keeps us glued to the story. Otherwise, we throw it away. We get disinterested in the story. We don't know, why am I watching now?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that in this, I wouldn't front load the first act too much.
Okay.
If you wanted to use that tactic, it might work in a rewrite. You could try it. But if it prolongs that first act, I'm still thinking, okay, so what's at stake here? And if I'm just watching a movie and a guy is kind of teaching some people, and they explain to me what forensics is, and this guy on a forensic team, okay, and I'm thinking, why am I watching this movie?
Yeah.
There has to be a reason why the audience wants it. Initially, you got them. Because if let's say we're reading, I'm willing to open up the first page. You got me. You haven't done anything yet. So I bring my interest to you initially. But then the whole first act is you earning my further interest, or I'm not going to read it anymore.
Right.
As a movie, people say, hey, I'm interested in this movie. They go and they pay their money. They go sit down. So the writer, the director kind of has them initially. But then, 15 minutes into the movie, 20 minutes into the movie, people might be saying, you know what, this ain't working, man. And the difference between that versus people saying, oh, man, and starting to lean forward in their seat and saying, man, what's getting ready to happen, is that the writer has to build a level of interest based on some kind of tension. The ante has to be upped. Now, you do later on, through Jimmy and the shooter, you've got a tension that happens way too late. Now, I don't think that's the tension I'm talking about. Now, that could be a tension, and that's good, because a story, once the initial tension is introduced, it can have several levels of tension. Think about the great movies you've seen. Any of the Star Trek movies or any of the Mission Impossible movies. You watch them, and all of a sudden, Mission Impossible format, right?
Oh yeah.
So the guy comes in, Ethan comes in, and somehow he sits down in a place, and they do it all clever, and then he plays the tape, and then they say, good evening, Mr. Whatever. Here's the situation. Basically, the writer's telling the audience.
Right.
Here's the situation. Here's what's at stake. We got to find them within 5 days, or the world is going to explode. Should you, decide to accept it, blah, 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 this tape will destruct in 5 minutes. So early on, we know what the stakes are. And we're saying, oh, man, how are they going to deal with this? How are they going to solve it? The rest of the movie, the entire rest of the movie, is about the writers showing us how they're going to solve the problem.
Okay.
Now use that as a template, because with the Three Little Pigs, the same thing is at work. So we go to the stuff with the three pigs, and all of a sudden, here comes the big bad wolf. And this dude, he'll kill you. He'll take your life. So the stakes are high. So we think, oh, man, why am I watching this story now? To see if the Three Little Pigs are going to survive. Or more importantly, how are they going to survive? It's just some pigs who have no defense against a wolf, and they're not running. They're going to stay put. Oh, man, they may not make it. So I'm concerned for them.
Yeah.
The tension rises. And then I'm watching to see what happens. And that may take me for 30 pages. See what happens with this wolf coming. He goes to the thing with the first pig, and the pig says, I ain't leaving. He blows his house down and kills the pig, or the pig runs away. I'm sorry. And then the second one, and then all this is stuff where the tension keeps mounting. By the time he gets to the third pig, I'm thinking, man, he blew his other pig's houses away. This one ain't going to make it. I'm fearing for their lives, literally. Now, every story doesn't have to have me fearing for somebody's life. Although in Lindsay's case, he might have a couple of students that threaten his life. I'm not throwing anything at you.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, even a story. Do you remember the story with Denzel, the Great Debater?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you remember the thing that gave the story its heightened intensity?
Was it the racism with the KKK like in the beginning?
Yes. Absolutely. Well, what happens was that the writer starts out helping themselves out by creating a backdrop that is so explosive and volatile, and that being racist America in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, the Ku Klux Klan, black people being lynched, and the story takes place right in the midst of that backdrop. So right away, it's a powder keg. There's tension. That's what holds audiences. Now, if you have a context, a backdrop to put your story in that is kind of right with some tension, I would say amp that up and use it. Now, you're talking about Oakland. You're talking about some tension. You got some at the beginning. Well written. I mean, the thing with the Latino cat who was shot in the rape of his woman and the mattress, that was very graphic. That was strong. But then you lose it. It's not a character anymore. Oakland, as a very potentially scary place to live, is no longer a backdrop. Not because it's not there, but because you don't use it.
Okay.
And because you don't use it, I'm thinking, so, I mean, with the Great Debater, somebody would say, well, this is a story about this debate team. Right? It was based on a true story. And about this man who takes them, and what I would say is that if you want, revisit it and watch it, maybe as a template. It might give you an idea or two.
I don't mean to cut you off. That makes a lot of sense. And I was watching Straight Outta Compton, and the backdrop was Compton, and they got they got Ice Cube on a bus, and then the boys is playing around with throwing Crip signs at the Bloods, and the Blood pulled the bus over, pulled a gun out, and put a gun to the boy head in the bus with everybody looking. I'm like, that's a backdrop where I think what you're talking about, I see exactly what you're talking about, where we could play with that a little bit more. Maybe Lindsay life, somebody threatening Lindsay life while he at work or something like that. And
now you're right on point too, Alfonso. Now think about this. You said that this is a story about Lindsay and the impact he has on these young African-American males, particularly taking the ones who are in the depths of struggle and uncertainty and all of that. We need to see him basically dealing with these dudes from the hood, man. I mean, dudes that come from, no father, no structure, whatever it is. But whatever they come from, we need to, A, see that Lindsay is this powerful, passionate, competent man who is very good at what he does in terms of teaching forensics, but even better at transforming lives. Now, I'm not really sure I see that in this script, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
You started off at the beginning and you showed me young Lindsay, by the way, beautifully written. the foot on the pedal. And I mean,
Oh, thank you.
You write like a filmmaker.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Now and then you take me up to college Lindsay. I've already been introduced to his father, the abuse and all of that. I say, okay, keep moving. Come on, writer, keep moving. And then you take me to the college Lindsay, and then boom, we leave Lindsay. Now I would say, no, don't leave Lindsay until you get him to the place where we are going to be with him in the movie. Once you establish where that is, then you can take him away. With Ray, with Ray Charles,
yeah,
the movie. We get introduced to Ray, the boy, but then we get introduced to him as a teenager, and then he becomes a man. He's playing around with those guys. We have a lot of flashbacks, but you got to establish place and character first. And you stopped with Lindsay at college Lindsay. And I thought, no. Here's the suggestion. I want to see the teacher. Because if you just show me a guy growing up, and then you cut away from him, at the point you cut away, I'm thinking, okay, so this is going to be a story about the guy who's in college right now. But it's not. I need to see the teacher at some point before you go to Spank or any of those other characters. And again, because you said this is about Lindsay. Now, you can flip it. You can open up about something else, kind of throwing, just a little bit of a distraction, and then come to this man. We see his shoes. Car pulls up and pulls into the faculty parking lot or whatever. He gets out with his briefcase or whatever, tired with it, and then he goes to his classroom. All right, class, blah, blah, blah. I need to see a teacher because, again, you got to establish a competent Lindsay so that I believe that he is as good as he is in teaching the students forensics to the point where they are number one in the country, if not the nation. And number two, that he knows how to take boys from the pit of despair. I mean, it could be that if you opened up in another place and you didn't open up with Lindsay, we just talking all kind of ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you open up with something else, if you open up in the hood and something's going down and all of a sudden somebody intervenes, a hand reaches in and grabs somebody or whatever, and boom, the man, Lindsay, is introduced to us. And he may have been introduced to us by saving somebody's life. What are you doing? Haven't I seen you around school? Yeah, I go, oh, yeah, you're so-and-so. I want you to come to my room. But anyway, don't use anything that I'm saying if it doesn't work. But
I see what you're saying.
That when we meet him, he is a teacher. Now, at any point, if you wanted to try that technique, you can always go to a flashback later, which now dimensionalizes him and explains why he is the way he is. There may be a situation where he's dealing with a young man who's got an issue with a father who's not there or abusive. And then all of a sudden, Lindsay's at home and he's looking in the mirror and boom, flashback. Young Lindsay, his father, drinking, blah, 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 the whole thing. See, now it's powerful because I don't need to know necessarily about all that stuff about him at the beginning of the movie. I mean, you could do it, but I don't need to necessarily know that. I need to know who this man is initially in your introduction. So let me know that he's a black man, obviously. He's a teacher at this school. He teaches forensics. You'll explain what forensics is later. Do your sketching early on, and then do your explanation after that. You explain an awful lot about Lindsay up front. Okay, so that is the technique. But then you leave him when you haven't finished the explanation to bring us up to at least the man so that we know, okay, this movie's going to be about this full-grown man. And I know enough about his backstory to where now we can go somewhere else. But when we come back to him, he's full-grown. I need to know he's a teacher early. I need to know that he teaches at a school that deals with some people from straight out of the hood. I need to know Oakland early. And then I have been introduced to some of my main characters. So, do I know where I am? Yes. Do I know who my main character is? Lindsay. Yes. Forget the other characters at this point. I know my main character is Lindsay. Do I know what he does? Yes. Do I have a sense of how good he is at what he does? Yes. And all I need is a sense. Maybe you just have the camera going down a row of trophies. And he walked in, this pair of shoes, just walking and then stepped up. All right, everybody, let's go. Boom. I mean, you could show some stuff in such a short period of time that lets you, okay, that's all I need.
Okay.
This dude runs a program that is bad, and you don't have to hit me over the head with it. You ain't got to do it with words sometimes.
Yeah.
But at least I know who he is, I know where he is, I know what he does, and I know who he deals with, because you're going to start introducing these people to me and the people that he works with. And if you do a good enough job, I'm going to even know at some point what's at stake. What's at stake? Maybe
sense.
early on, somebody's at a funeral. He lost one.
Interesting.
Maybe then later on when you go back, the truth is Lindsay ain't going to save everybody. And I think that actually works to your favor. Okay, now listen to these. Okay, I got these just interesting opening characters, blah, 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 blah. Okay. And some of the things that in this draft, I didn't quite think that your setup was enough for me to believe what you were asking me to believe. It's like, for example, the transition where Spank joins the forensic team. And then there's the thing with Lindsay and the principal. I didn't quite believe that. It just didn't seem real. It just it's like, not that it couldn't work, but there wasn't enough of a setup for me to believe that was going to happen.
Okay.
So just a thought.
Okay, cool.
Spank switch to forensics is just too easy. His sudden switch and his interest in forensics, it's like all of a sudden he's suddenly interested in it. And then it in the script it suggests that his interest is based on him going to college, and he thinks that the football is not going to get him there. But I don't really sense that the Spank, as he's written right now, is that guy. I got a guy who's smoking weed. I got a guy who's getting a lap dance at a strip club. I got a guy who's smoking weed and then swears that he's going to change, and then he's smoking weed right after that. And I'm thinking, I don't believe in Spank. I don't believe in him because the writer's not giving me enough reason to believe in him and to root in him. I don't think Spank is really much different than Jimmy or any of the other guys. I don't think he'd shoot anybody, but if I had to put my money or root on somebody, I would say, please give me another character. This ain't the guy. I need somebody. Boys in the Hood. Years ago, Lawrence Fishburne, Cuba Gooding Jr. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Okay. Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character was specifically written to be more clean than the other guys. And not in clean versus dirty. But you could tell during the movie, he clearly wasn't like Ice Cube.
Exactly.
He also wasn't like the brother who was the athlete. Mm-hmm. He was a little square. He was a little different. And the reason and the way the writer got away with it was he brought him from a different environment into his father's neighborhood, into his father's home. So we could accept this dude's a little bit different. But now that he's here, we're going to put him in with the cats who live here. So he's going to get a little bit dirty. But you never see him quite doing everything they do. So even when they had the backyard party, they drinking, they might have been smoking. He don't do that.
Right.
Yet they love him. He's one of them. But if he does that, the audience is being asked to say, this ain't the guy I want you to root for. Or, I better give you enough of another reason before he slips up. He's not perfect. All heroes have a little flaw. You can give him a little flaw. But before you do that, you better give me a reason to like him, to root for him, and for me to say that out of all these guys in this neighborhood, this is the one I would want to marry my sister. Yeah. Even if he ain't perfect.
Yeah.
This dude's got a great heart. He's a good dude, man. And in fact, he's the one who's trying to save Jimmy and the rest of these guys around him. But if you got him doing what Jimmy does, I begin to see no difference between him and Jimmy. Now, clearly, Jimmy is a nice character to have in your script, but I think Spank is running a little bit too much with Jimmy. He's a little too dirty for me to separate him enough from Jimmy to say, this is the guy, come on, Spank, don't do that, man, don't do it. You got a chance, man. Now, if you think about it that way, the beauty of it is, in Boys in the Hood, Ice Cube basically told Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character, you know, we probably ain't gonna make it, man, but you will. You will. In so many stories where you got the one guy who loves the other brother's dirty jaws, that is his dude. But he basically knows he ain't got much of a chance. He may not be that smart, or may not think he is. I'm talking about Jimmy.
Yeah.
He may feel like he got too much anger in him and he don't have enough time to resolve it. But he's looking at his dog and saying, hey, man, you got a shot, Spank. No, I ain't going to offer you this weed. That's me, man. That ain't you. You got a shot. Or if he offers it to him, he say, hey, man, nah, man, you know, I don't go that way. And neither should you, man. Come on, why don't we... Jimmy should be the guy who he's not our hero that we're necessarily rooting for, but we're rooting for our hero to help change Jimmy. And he has the best chance because him and Jimmy are boys. And then while we're rooting for all of that, that's what would make Jimmy's death so much more painful to us. And to Spank.
True.
And to Spank. Just when Spank was just starting to get to him. Maybe starting to change him. Because Spank had been inspired by Lindsay. You see how the story kind of, everybody's intertwined in all of this?
I love it. I love it. That is some great feedback. I see it right now. I can see it.
So I think you have the characters. I think it's just a matter of how you manipulate them now, Alfonso. Let me go through a couple other things.
Okay.
We already did this. I asked the question, is the focus on Spank or Lindsay? Okay. Victory seems to... Oh, by the way, I love the little vignettes you have of the forensic performances.
Oh, yeah. I want like Brad Pitt and Josh Gad and I forget all the people who used to do forensics. I want them to do like a 1 minute excerpt in between the movie. Because
But now this technique of using those vignettes has to be used right, or it's going to be a distraction in the movie.
Okay.
Now I've seen a movie where I can't think of the name of it. It was a fiction, but the writer, the filmmaker, tried to give the impression that it was based on a real person. So what they did was they had these people who were acting as if they really knew this person back in the day, who was this great writer and great socialite. They would come in and they would just do sit-down interview. And they would be saying, oh, man, I remember. He was this and that. And it was just like an interview, like they were just sitting in a studio. And then, boom, they cut to the movie. And then throughout the movie, there are about 8 to 10 of those moments where they were going to say, oh, yeah, I remember when he first got in trouble. He says, man, I had a talk with him about... But they use that as an important part of telling the story. Now, I don't think that the way you use it actually advances the story at all. So much as it's just used as a technique to kind of show us what forensics is. Well, okay, it's important for me to know what forensics is because that's how Lindsay is changing the people. It doesn't advance the story. Now, I start thinking, it could definitely do it depending on what pieces they're doing. And I would suggest that wherever you have it used in the script, keep it there, but use it at a time when you need to put some glue in between some things in the script.
Okay.
So it's not just a performance to show us that Brad Pitt used to be in forensics, which is very interesting. But it's more important that Brad Pitt is saying something in his teeth
Right. That glues it together. It's
Something in the story.
a
Absolutely.
a thematic presentation. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's what I was thinking. That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking. But that's why I didn't put one in because I didn't know
Yeah.
which one to put in at the time. Right
Yeah.
there.
No, I feel you. I feel you. Great technique, though. And as a writer, you got to plant little seeds where you can give yourself places to go when you need to get there. Or if you're saying, man, this is, I just go from this to that. I need a transition. Boom, you throw in one of those pieces. Let's just say, just off the top of my head, that we're doing something about the father-son relationship or the lack of or whatever. And, we hold for a minute on somebody going through something, and then boom, we go to a forensic piece that deals specifically about the father-son relationship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And leads us into whatever's going to be the next scene. I mean, you could use it as your transitions in between these moments. I wouldn't overdo it, but I don't think that I don't think you have so many that I ever felt that you were really overdoing it. I just put the note down. Man, this is a beautiful thing. Just be careful that you use it smartly and wisely to advance the story, not just for the sake of getting these people in to show that they were in forensics. Because you could just say that. No, their presence will be less important initially than what they're saying at the moment. And then who they are will help to sweeten that pot. Wow, and it happens to be Brad Pitt. But Brad needs to be throwing something down relevant to the story.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, the Hawaii segment.
Okay.
It's 12 pages long. That's too long.
Okay.
As a general rule, remember, feature films have to move. That's why in the draft, you sit up on the page. There should be a lot of fat in the draft to give you something to cut back from.
Okay.
But the Hawaii segment, I kept thinking, okay, all right, so, I did forensics for years. I know what this is all about, so some of the tournaments are away, and this one happens to be Hawaii.
You did forensics?
Did I do forensics? Are you serious?
I didn't know you did forensics. I didn't know that.
Oh, man. Oh, maybe we never talked about that.
No, we never talked about that. I never knew you did forensics.
Oh, man. I'm the first African-American who won back-to-back #1 college speaker in the nation.
Well, I need to have you do one of those vignettes. I didn't even know that. You need to do one of the vignettes.
I was the national champion for 2 straight years. Won the Pentathlon Championship, National Forensic Association, American Forensic Association. Lindsay used to bring me up to critique his students when he got overloaded. I've gone to nationals to observe them several times. I've judged nationals. No, forensics is how I went to USC on a speech and debate scholarship.
Wow.
That's the only way I could have gone to USC. But yeah, that. So the forensic pieces speak to my heart. I mean, I love them. And so when you had the tournament in Hawaii, I thought, okay, this is nice. Now, one of the things I like is boys out of the hood. So, they're going to get out of town and go to Hawaii. It's like, wow, the opportunities that exist for these guys. But then I also like that, but they're still from the hood. So they're going to blow something.
Mm-hmm.
Because they haven't been trained. They don't understand the etiquette. So basically, somebody going to get a little wild. Mm. Now, the fact that you take them to a strip club, interesting. But I think you spend too much time in the strip club. And because you spend too much time there, they're dirty when they leave. Now, let me explain what I mean.
Okay.
So, you have to, again, ask yourself, what do I want my audience to think about my characters? Are these innocent boys who are kind of curious, who go to a strip club, and there's these strippers, and it's like, oh, man, but I sense they're innocent. And so when they blow it, it's like, oh, man, I blew it, and they're rushing to get back. Or if I leave them there too long, if they seem too familiar with it, if the lap dance is too pleasurable, if it's all those things, I kind of get the feeling that these boys ain't as innocent as I thought. Okay, they may not be all innocent, but just be careful that if you want somebody to root for somebody and you give them flaws, they have to be forgivable flaws.
Interesting.
Now, I personally wouldn't have the lap dance. Or, if I have it, I'd only give it to a character I'm willing to throw away. That's why a lot of times the writers will write a character who they call the dispensable character. You ever notice in those movies that the FBI agents are coming looking for the guy with a gun, and it's about 8 of them? You know 4 of them getting ready to go down. They're going to get shot. They're going to get killed. They're dispensable.
Yeah.
And usually the writer will give them some quality that the audience don't care if they go down.
Yeah.
I mean, they really don't. I mean, and that's an advanced thing. You got to decide who you want the audience to. If you drag them through the mud, you don't drag them through enough so the audience can say, you know what? It's like the kid whose older brother gets him stone drunk off of some Bacardi 151 on his 16th birthday. He's passing out, throwing up in the street. And mother and father come home and catch him and slap him in his face. You're crying, you know, boy, you hurt me. Our whole and the boy got so much remorse. It just, we'll forgive him for that. Yeah. Somebody got him drunk. It was the first time. He shows remorse. That kind of thing. Okay. Now, with Frank, when Lindsay comes to his dorm room, if I remember right, he's smoking weed, and he basically, I don't care. I don't give a damn. I kept saying, I don't like this character. And at the very least, I'm not rooting for him. I'd rather root for somebody else because the writer is not giving me more reasons to like him and forgive him for his flaws than it is that the writer is just rubbing his face in those flaws. So with the strip club, I thought, okay, I get it. They're out of town. Good. Hawaii, beautiful, because it's really out of town. I mean, you want to get somebody out of town, you go from Oakland to Hawaii.
Yeah.
I like it. They sneak out at night. I like it. They go to a strip club. I like it. I think you're a little too overindulgent in the strip club, given that we're talking about high school kids who you still want us to root for. Now, if you have one who say, hey, man, I'm getting me some, have him go into a back room and get his lap dance. Because if we see it, the audience is going to have to make a decision. Is this somebody I'm going to root for later on? Is this a forgivable act? Is he regretful later on? I mean, how you handle it saves your characters, or you give them away because you say, no, this is a character I can give away. I don't care if the audience follows this character. He's not my guy. But save your heroes. Make them dirty, but not too much because it's hard for the audience to forgive that character and want to root for him later on. If you make him dirty, you better redeem him, Alfonso.
Okay.
You better redeem him so I can root for him again. Okay. Spank's uncle died. I didn't feel enough of a connection between him and his uncle to care much about that. I mean, I just think it was unfortunate, but it seemed to me like you wanted to make that a moment where we see a vulnerable side of Spank. But it just wasn't enough of a setup.
Okay.
I didn't even know who his uncle was really enough.
Okay.
And I didn't know enough of the connection he had with his uncle to know that really hurt him.
Yeah.
Spank asked for a second chance. It was very, very touching. I mentioned that. Then he's smoking weed right after that with Jimmy. And I thought, do you want him to have a second chance or not? Because if it's so, I need to see him really trying to change.
Okay.
Even if it's a challenge, I need to see him trying to change.
Okay.
The accusation of racism that Spank makes, I guess the principal or somebody was making, is weakened by the fact that it's coming from somebody who spends his time smoking dope with Jimmy. It's almost like, I need you to be a little bit more upstanding. I need you to be a little bit more caring. I need you to be a little bit more worthy of me listening to your accusation to somebody else about jamming you up as a racist. Not that that can't come, but it would be stronger if Spank was a more upstanding character.
Okay.
Not perfect, but a little bit more upstanding.
Okay, that makes sense.
We need to see real change in Spank if you want us to believe in him and root for him. So when you first introduce him, you can introduce his flaws. Perfect. Because you've set up how far he needs to come from that to get to where we're going to see him. We need to see him go from that, Alfonso, to becoming one of the best forensic speakers in the nation, or certainly in the state. That's your progression with him. And you think about that, we can't start off with him being great at forensics. And I believe, if I remember right in the script, he wins the first tournament he goes to.
Yes.
And I thought, no, it's too easy. I don't care if he's got skills. They haven't been honed yet. Because if they have, you don't need Lindsay. Unless you just need Lindsay to kind of be, a lion tamer for him. I think that he should have some skills, but I don't think he should win initially. Because you don't lead me anywhere to go.
Interesting.
I think initially he should try, but I think he should struggle. I think we should see glimpses of, oh, God, if this guy just puts the time in, if he just commits himself, but see, that's one of his weaknesses. He is not focused. He's not committed.
True.
So
that's a good point.
Saying, well, I'll give it a shot.
That's a good point. I could see that happen in the story. That's a good point. Because And
you might want to show him being discouraged because he doesn't win those first things. He don't have the patience of some of those other students. He's ready to walk out. Did you see Drumline?
Yes, I did.
Remember Drumline? Our main character, he was a natural. Couldn't read music. He didn't have the patience. He didn't have all of the dedication those other people had. So he was ready to walk out. How the heck was this thing? He was ready to walk out. And what did that teacher challenge him to do? Here you will learn music. Here you will learn how to become a team player, a part of a family. Go back and check that one out, too. That'd be really, really good.
Okay.
I cared for him, man. He was a rebel. He was a renegade. He was undisciplined. But I cared for him for some reason.
Yeah.
He wanted to be good. He didn't know how. So they taught him how. Now, think about that. What if Spank really wants to be good at something? He doesn't know how, and he's afraid to get help from people because he's a dude and he's from the hood. Come on. You know that culture.
Mm-hmm.
Young black male ain't going to ask for help.
Yep.
As soon as he runs into a challenge, he's ready to walk away. If he ain't the best in the very beginning, but he wants to do it without working hard.
Right.
He doesn't understand the work. And then Lindsay comes in his life, and I think that is one of the biggest transitions Spank can make in your story. He has to become a man. Now, I'm overstating that, of course. I think that Lindsay is the father he didn't have, and I think that what Lindsay does is recognizes the gift this young boy has, but you don't have dedication. You don't have focus. And you might as well walk out of here now unless you're willing to work. But if you're willing to work, I'll make you one of the best. Now I'm beginning to care because something is at stake. Now I see Spank walking away because of his ego, thinking about it, seeing something happen with Jimmy or the rest of them guys who ain't going nowhere and saying, I ain't going out like that. So by default, he goes back to the only person who he thinks has a chance of making him a man, and that's Lindsay, and basically says, I'm ready. Not that I'm going to start off at the top. I'm ready. I'm ready to practice. I'm ready to learn. I'm ready to sit it. And so I think we need to see the progression of him getting better and better and better. And then he backslides. And then Lindsay snatches him and brings him back in. I'm only giving you one more chance. He gets better and better, and boom, we start to see it reflected in these tournaments. And all of a sudden, this kid who was in the beginning smoking dope, hanging out with gangbangers, not one of them, but we could just see if he keeps down this road, clearly he's going to end up like a lot of them end up.
Mm-hmm.
But if he follows this prophet, this man, this mentor, his guru, Lindsay, if he follows him, not only will he save his life, he'll be one of the greatest speakers that ever competed. I'm telling you, Alfonso, you potentially have a story here. And I think you have the characters to pull it off. But it's how you execute it and how you use these characters to tell that story. Make Lindsay and Spank a father and son story. Lindsay saves this boy from the streets. He ain't the only one he saves. But now you're telling Lindsay's story, but you're telling it primarily through the example of what he did with this one kid. And then we see pictures of these other kids. And boom, this one he works with. But primarily his head case, his hardest challenge is Spank. And he never gives up on the boy. He never gives up on him. I'm just throwing stuff out there. But
That's a beautiful story, man. Yes, sir. That's what I'm trying to do.
You got a story, Alfonso. You truly do have a story. So think about these things, and then... And I think you need to do another rewrite on this. Go back and take a look at it. Do some rewrites. In the rewrites, I would hold on to the elements that seem to work for you.
Okay.
I'd rewrite some scenes that, the scene might have a reason for being there, but maybe you might need to tighten some things up. I would first, before you do any of that, decide what story you want to tell. Like I asked you, ask yourself. Don't do any rewrites until you answer it to the point where you say, that's it. Don't be sort of iffy. Don't be kind of, I'm speaking off the top of my head. You got to know, or you're going to waste your time in your rewrite because you'll still be unclear.
Okay.
And say, this is a story that is going to focus on this man, Tommy Lindsay. By the way, I like the way you explained it. Who he is, where he came from, what he does, and how he has changed the lives of all of these people. I mean, he is a hero. It's a story about a hero. And you have enough templates to go back and take a look at. You can look at Drumline between what's his name and the drum teacher, the Drumline teacher. You can look at the Great Debaters with Denzel. And remember now, in that story, he had 4 people on the debate team, but one of them was his head case. Remember?
Yeah.
One of them, hard-headed, skillful. In fact, it was his most skillful debater, but the most troublesome kid that he had. But he never gave up on that boy.
Yeah.
And I think that should become the focus, so that it'll now crystallize your writing. Be clear on your relationship between Lindsay and Spank. Be clear on that. Be clear on a few other characters that you're going to sprinkle around. Not a whole lot. Just a few. Again, use the Great Debaters as your template. There were a lot of people on the debate team. They narrowed it down. He said we can only travel with 3.
Right.
2 on the team, and that's what the young lady was on there. She was the officer. But narrowed down to where it's only there's a forensic team, but there are just a few of these people, and then the hardest head case is Spank. And decide. I like Jimmy. Keep him. I like Jimmy's death. It brings a lot of empathy, a lot of pathos to the story.
Okay.
So that's good. That works. Where he dies is important. It can't be too early. It can't be too late. And his death has to be a lesson, a clear signal to Spank. Time to make a decision, young man. You want to end up in a casket like him, or do you want to end up on top of the world? I'm giving you one day. If you don't show up tomorrow, I'll assume you want to end up 6 feet under. If you do, no more excuses. We start working. And then we need to see the work. Work. Sweat. Complicated. Struggle. Work. Slight victory. Work. More victory. Work. He begins to believe it. The smile comes. I can do this. Regional champion, qualifier, and now we end up at the national championship. Akila and the Bee. We start off in the projects in Watts. We end up at the national championship, and she wins it. This needs to be a story not unlike a football team. He has a team. Lindsay takes this team of misfits, and he makes national champions out of them. Come on, man. I feel that just laying here.
Yes, sir.
And listen, Alfonso, you're a good enough writer to pull this off. You really are.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So I want you to think about the things that we talked about. Use me as a resource reference any kind of way you want. You want to throw something together, shoot it back at me. I will read it, and I'll read it from front to back, which is more than what a lot of people are going to do.
Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Young, man.
Oh, no, thank you for listening. Thank you for listening.
You are awesome. I can't thank you enough. So I'll do that.
This is my cell number. Call me anytime. You got any questions, any thoughts, or anything like that? Just like I said, I'm here. And I don't have all the answers, and I don't presume to tell anybody hey, listen to what I say. If something works, you can use it. If it doesn't, no harm, no foul.
I'll tell you what, it's been really, really good information. Everything I think that you said is very, very, very valuable. Definitely taken into consideration, and I think this is gonna make the script so much better. I'm about to put it down, and I'll get back to you, let you know what I come up with.
Absolutely. And again, I'm going to reiterate again. I think you got something here. It needs a little work, but I think you potentially have a script here that can make some noise.
Awesome.
And we haven't quite seen this script before. That's the beauty of it.
Nice. Oh, nice. Awesome.
All right, Alfonso. I'm here. You got me.
All right. Thanks, William.
All right, man.
Have a good night.
You too, bro.
Bye-bye.